On Memorial Day, the noise of Harley engines cut across Arlington like a gut punch, drowning out the distant bugle. 4 leather-clad bikers rode around a pregnant woman who was crying at a new grave. Their boots crushed her lilies, and their crude laughs drowned out her sobbing. "Move it, sweetheart. Your hero's dirt doesn't need any waterworks," the leader said angrily, pulling her arm so forcefully that she winced and put her palm on her stomach. The crowd stopped, tourists with phones half raised and veterans whispering to each other. But no one did anything. Then, out of the tomb's shadow, he came, the tomb guard, all sharp blue steel and unblinking eyes, entering into the fight without saying a word. One iron grip twist, and the biggest thug struck the ground, gasping. The biker's fist soared through the air, but the guard didn't flinch or shout. He merely took them out, one by one, as quiet as the stones around him. People mumbled, "Who the hell is this statue?" They saw a stiff with a strange hat, acting like a cop on holy ground. But what they didn't know, not even the MPs who were pouring in, was that this tomb guard had faced death in the sandbox, lost a brother to it, and broken his vow of silence for the first time to protect a seal's unborn legacy from the wolves at the gate. Before we get into this story, where are you watching it from? Please tell us in the comments and click the subscribe button together with the bell icon. If you still believe that principles like honor, courage, and sacrifice are important, help us preserve their memory alive. In the sacred space of Arlington National Cemetery, where the murmurs of fallen warriors mix with the sound of oak leaves rustling in the late afternoon sun, Sergeant Elias Kane walked like a shadow made of steel. It was Memorial Day, a special time for Americans to think about the cost of freedom. The air was thick with the smell of freshly cut grass and flowering dogwoods. Elias, who was only 28, looked sharp in his blue uniform, which was the 3rd Infantry Regiment's trademark. His navy KP cap was just right, and his dark shades hid eyes that had seen too much as a ranger. He held the M14 rifle in his white-gloved hands, not as a weapon but as a serious duty. The changing of the guard was very exact and measured. 21 steps forward, a sharp turn, and 21 steps back. The rhythm of respect was imprinted into his bones. Elias hadn't always been this quiet guard. He had lost his older brother Jake to an insurgent's bullet while on a routine patrol in a desert base in Iraq. Jake was the one that talked a lot and made jokes quickly. He would often make fun of Elias's robot march, even in boot camp. Elias picked this spot at the tomb of the unknown soldier to commemorate that stillness, to be where words failed and remembrance lived on. "It's not about the glory," he told his coworker once, his voice low and rough like gravel under tires. "It's about the people who don't get parades." And so he stood, unyielding, as visitors took pictures from behind the velvet ropes. Their whispers were a faraway buzz against the flicker of the perpetual flame. Sarah Thompson parked her old Ford Taurus near Section 60, not far from the amphitheater where red, white, and blue wreaths flew in the wind. She was 32 years old and wore the weight of grief like an invisible backpack. It had been 2 years since her husband, Petty Officer Ryan Thompson, a Navy SEAL with eyes like summer storms, had given everything in Helmand Province. They say it was an IED ambush. Ryan had protected his squad and given them a few seconds to shoot back, but those seconds cost him his life. Sarah was now 7 months pregnant with their first child, a boy they wanted to name after his father if he made it home. She stepped out of the car, one hand holding her tummy and the other holding a bunch of white lilies tied with a faded American flag ribbon. The cemetery looked like a quilt of sacrifice, with row after row of white marble markers, each one telling a narrative in stone. Sarah strolled slowly, her plain sundress flapping against her warm skin. A silver dog tag necklace sparkled at her throat. Ryan's has his blood type and a scripture from Psalms written on it. The grass was still soft from being cut recently, so she readily found his plot. She knelt down carefully and put the lilies at the base of the gravestone. Her fingertips traced the letters. Petty Officer, First Class, Ryan James Thompson, beloved husband, father-to-be, hero. As she said to the breeze, "Hey babe, it's me and him, we're hanging in there. You know the doctor says he's kicking like he's training for the teams already. You'd laugh at that, our little frogman." Tears came to her eyes, hot and unbidden. Her voice broke, and the words came out in that sweet southern drawl she had learned from Ryan's family in Georgia. "I miss you, God. I miss you, but I'm trying to be strong like you always said for us." She leaned back on her heels, one palm on the cool stone and the other on her abdomen, feeling the tiny flutter of life inside. The cemetery felt like a safe place where sadness could be free to breathe without being judged. Families shared picnics nearby in the shade of elm trees. Kids ran after frisbees with red poppy pins on their shirts. As they walked by, veterans in old baseball caps saluted. It was America at its most beautiful, raw, strong, and wrapped in the flag. But freedom that feels like serenity doesn't come without people who want to take it away. A low rumble came from the memorial bridge and grew into a loud boom that broke the solemn silence. 4 Harleys, black creatures with chrome that shone like switchblades, tore down the access road, their engines howling in violation of the enforced quiet zones. They turned into the parking lot, tires crunching gravel, and stopped suddenly just in front of Sarah's car, blocking it like a wall. The riders killed their bikes, and the abrupt calm was nearly as unsettling as the noise. They got off with the confidence of men who owned the road and everything on it. Jack's Razor, Harland 40, was the leader of the pack. It was made like a brick wall and had aged leather on it. His beard, which was gray in some places, framed a face that had been cut up by too many bar fights and too many tours in the sandbox. His jacket had a patch that said, Rebels MC, Ride or Die. His forearms were covered in faded army ink, a screaming eagle, and the words Iraq 03. His brothers in ink and attitude were Spike, who had a wiry buzz cut, a permanent sneer, and a missing tooth from a fight, Rusty, who was heavy and had a gut that spilled over his belt and a laugh like grinding gears, and Bull, who was quiet but huge, with hurt and pain tattoos on his knuckles. They had come up from Richmond for the holiday, chasing the wind and getting rid of old ghosts with cheap bourbon. But Arlington wasn't their typical stop. Earlier, Jax had complained about it, saying, "A bunch of fancy graves for suckers who bought the dream. Let's raise hell for the real ones." Jax lit a cigarette and blew forth smoke like a dragon. He looked around the lot with bloodshot eyes. He saw Sarah then, still kneeling beside the grave, her shoulders heaving. "Well, hell," he said in a loud Appalachian accent, tossing ash toward the monument. "Hey guys, look what we have here. A sad little mom-to-be crying over some dirt." Spike laughed and opened a silver flask to take a drink. "Yeah, Razor. Bet the stiff inside. Thought he was hot. He probably fell over his own bootlaces." Sarah stopped moving, and her breath caught when their shadows fell over her. She forced herself to speak in a calm voice as she looked up and wiped her tears with the back of her palm. "Please show some respect. This is a cemetery." Jack walked closer, his boots thudding on the ground. His team spread out like wolves around a fawn. He was so big that the smell of leather and stale smoke filled the room. "Respect, darling. We rode 200 miles for respect. This place is a tourist trap for idiots who wave flags. Your boy is just another name on a rock. What's his story? He went Rambo and got smoked." Sarah's hand clenched around her belly as her protective instinct kicked in. "He was a SEAL. Afghanistan. He died saving his team." Her words sat there, strong but weak. Rusty snorted and threw an empty beer can that hit the marker and made a noise. "SEAL, huh? Fancy boy with a trident. My cousin was one. Came back in a box too. Big whoop. Move your knocked up ass, you're blocking our bikes." The gang laughed, a rough bark that bounced off the stones. Spike took a picture of Sarah's face, which was wet with tears. "Smile for the gram, honey. Gold star grief." Bull simply groaned and crossed his arms, but Jax leaned in closer, his breath hot on her cheek. "Come on, mama. No ghost is going to come up and be daddy now. Give me those flowers. They could make a nice ashtray." Sarah rushed back, her heart racing, one arm protecting her tummy from a violent kick from the baby that made her grimace. "Leave me alone. Please, just go." Jax wasn't done, though. He reached out, grabbed the flowers from the grave, and stepped on a lily with his boot. Elias had just ended his duty at the amphitheater when the relieving guard took over with a crisp salute. He was cleaning the M14 with a fake cloth, and his muscles were tight from the precise march when the roar reached him. His head jerked up, and his sunglasses covered the storm in his eyes. There, in Section 60, the bikers, the woman on the ground, and the destruction brought back thoughts of Jake's grave in Ohio, which punks had defiled on a dare. Elias's jaw was set, and a vein was throbbing in his temple. He had to be quiet near the tomb. But here, in the larger grounds, the line was less clear. He put the rifle over his shoulder, unloaded it for the ceremony, and walked toward them with long, slow steps, like a predator closing in. A group of families and veterans close moved, forming a loose semicircle. Hank, 70, a wiry man from Korea who wore a VFW cap, said to his wife, "Something's brewing. Those boys need to learn how to behave." People took out their phones and zoomed in, but no one stepped up yet. Stop. That's my husband's, Sarah said, and it worked. Jack pushed her shoulder, which wasn't hard enough to hurt her, but it was enough to knock her down on the grass. She yelled and curled up about her stomach. My baby. Elias was there in seconds, and his shadow stretched long across the landscape. He was 6 feet 3 inches tall, and was like a low rumble from the heartland. He put himself between Sarah and the motorcyclists. Ma'am, are you okay? He said. It was the first thing he'd said all day, and it was quiet, yet had an air of authority. Jack, smirking at him, said, Well, paint me red, white, and blue if it ain't the graveyard ghost in the Boy Scout getup. What are you? The welcome wagon. This ain't your beat, tin soldier, Spike said. Yeah, march back to your shiny rock, we got this. Rusty laughed, but Bull seemed uncomfortable and kept glancing at Elias's weapon. Elias didn't move, his feet were wide apart and his gloved hands were slack at his sides. This is Arlington, the ground of the honored dead. You're on sacred soil, gentlemen. Time to put away your attitudes and move on. His voice was steady and Midwestern flat, but it had the steel of a man who has faced worse than weekend warriors. Sarah gasped as she pushed herself up on one elbow. Thank you, sir. They are bothering me. Jack spit on the ground, only a few inches from a marker. Harassing? We're just talking. Prego, this stiff in the dirt? He ain't listening. You shouldn't either. He pointed at Elias with a finger. And you, fancy pants with a popgun. What, are you going to salute us to leave? I did my time, buddy. I've lost more brothers than you have, boot polish. These graves are for losers who bought Uncle Sam's lie. Elias's sunglasses obscured his eyes, but his voice was steady and deep, like a heartbeat. I hear you. War chews men up and spits them out mean, but picking on a widow who is carrying on her husband's legacy is not a fight worth winning. The people in the audience whispered. Hank nodded hard. Yes, son. Spike surged forward with a flask in his hand, spilling alcohol. Legacy. Huh. Her man's worm food. And you're just a damn statue. Bet you couldn't scrap if your life depended on it. He swung wildly at Elias's jaw, but the sergeant sidestepped with the fluid elegance of hand-to-hand exercises, and the flask whistled by. Rusty grabbed Elias's arm and pulled him up. Get him, guys. Show this desk jockey. But Elias moved like water over rock. He put Rusty's wrist in a compliance hold and twisted it, which is a classic Ranger takedown. Rusty fell to his knees with a yell. Take it easy. There's no need for this. Next, the bull charged, fists like hams, and roared without saying a word. Elias turned and used the rifle stock to block the blow. Then he hit Bull in the solar plexus with his elbow, not to hurt him but to wind him. As Spike circled around with a pocket knife, he flicked open the blade and caught the sun. Bull doubled over and gasped. Do you think you're hot? I'll cut that uniform off you. No, stop, Sarah yelled as she got up, but Jax pulled her back with a big hand on her shoulder. Sweetheart, watch the show. Your night is about to get crazy, the crowd gasped. Phones up high, live feeds coming to life. Before it even peaked, the Arlington brawl was trending. Back off, you thugs, Hank shouted. Arlington PD is coming. Elias stood in front of Spike with his hands up, not to give up but to tell him to back off. Put down the knife, son. You're better than this. Spike growled and lunged low for the belly, but Elias grabbed his wrist in the middle of the thrust and bent it back just enough to make the blade fall to the ground. He grabbed Spike's ankle with a sweep of his leg, driving him face first into the grass. Stay down. It was Jax's turn now. The leader's expression went from funny to angry, and the veins in his neck stood out. Son of a... You don't know me. He pulled a rusty but loaded .38 caliber gun from his belt and pointed it at Elias's chest. I served with a buddy from the 82nd. Time to miss. This, he swung the gun at Sarah. This is nothing but you. You're in my way. The sound of the hammer hitting the nail sounded like death. Please don't, Sarah said. He's just a baby inside me. Elias didn't blink or charge. He moved forward slowly and carefully, his voice cutting through the stalemate like a crowbar. I know the 82nd Razor and Airborne are tough, but that piece, it's seen enough blood. Put it away. How did he know? The mob murmured information. Elias read individuals like OP reports. Jax's hand shook as he stared at Elias. How are you calling me out? You don't know about the sandbox. Ryan Thompson, Elias muttered, and the name was like a grenade in the calm. SEAL, Hellman 23. He got your squad out of an ambush. He took the blast for it. I read the after action. You're Jax Harlan. He saved your life. Jax's face lost all its color. Thompson, Jesus, that was my LT. He stopped. The fire gave us the extract. I got the Purple Heart, but he got the box. His voice broke, and the large man swayed. Spike groaned from the ground. What the hell, Razor? Elias pushed. gently but firmly. Don't hurt his girl. She has his blood. Your brother's blood, in a way. He died a hero. Jax's arms fell, and the 38 hit the ground. He got down on one knee and put his head in his hands. God damn it. I didn't mean to. We were just letting off steam. PTSD makes you see red. Bull, still wheezing, said, Razor, are we cool? But Jax waved him off, tears in his eyes. Shut up. We're not cool. We were jerks. From the trees, sirens rang out as the Arlington Police Department's lights flashed blue and red. Colonel Maria Reyes, 45, and sharp as a bayonet, rushed out of a patrol SUV with 2 MPs. She had a Latina fire in her step. What's going on here? She yelled, her badge shining. She looked at Elias for a moment, then nodded in pride. Report, Sergeant Kane. Elias gave a salute. Crisp, ma'am. Disorderly conduct, threatening a visitor, and being held without further action. Reyes looked at the motorcyclists, who were disarmed and restrained, and at Sarah, who was being helped up by a tourist with a nice expression. Hands where I can see them, you four. You're on federal land. The MPs promptly cuffed them. Spike whined, This is BS. But Jax didn't say anything. His shoulders drooped as they put him in the wagon. Sarah ran to Elias, crying, and grabbed his arm. You stopped them like Ryan would have. Thank you doesn't even begin to cover it. Her voice trembled, and the baby kicked again, as if to say thank you. Elias relaxed a little, and took off his sunglasses, showing eyes that were the color of old denim. Ma'am, Sarah, right from the stone. No thanks needed. It's what we do, protect our own. He looked at her tummy. That little guy has a fighter's spirit already. Ryan must be proud. Hank moved around, holding Elias's forearm tightly with his VFW helmet and hand. Son, that was something. I'm a Korean War vet named Hank Wilkins. I saw MacArthur's boys hold the line, but you held it quiet. No flash. That made this old-timer proud. Memorial Day isn't just about flags, it's about guys like you stepping up. Elias shook his hand firmly. Thanks for that, sir. It means a lot coming from a foxhole man. As the PD was finishing up, Reyes pulled Elias to the side. Kane, you broke protocol by leaving post to intervene. But hell, you did it right. No shots, no mess. Brass will hear about this. She smirked and patted him on the shoulder. Have you ever thought about going back to Spec Ops? The SEALs could use a steady hand like yours. Elias shook his head and looked away at the distant glint of the tomb. No, Colonel. My fight is here. Keep the peace. That's my promise. Ryan and others like him don't need more noise. They need watchmen. The bikers piled up, and Jax stopped at the door of the cruiser. He looked Sarah straight in the eye, voice harsh but real. Ma'am, I'm sorry for the grave for you. Tell that kid his dad was a legend. He saved my sorry ass when no one else could. And me? I'll try not to be such a damn fool. Sarah nodded and wiped her face. I forgive you. Ryan would too. Please get help for your brothers. Jax lowered his head, and the door slammed shut behind him. Elias led Sarah to her car as the sun went down, and painted the markers gold. He kept his arms steady under her elbow. Drive safely, and if it's a boy, name him Ryan Jr. Keep that name strong. She hugged him hard and fast. I will. You're a good man, Sergeant. Arlington is lucky. He watched her drive away, the tail lights vanishing into the Virginia night. Hank stayed for a while, smoking a pipe with shaky hands. You know, boy, I lost my Danny in name. She came here every year, just like you. Today felt like he was watching. You gave us all a win. Elias nodded, and the heaviness of the day settled like dew. Words go around quickly. Videos are showing up in feeds. Brush Your Tomb Guard hero is becoming viral. There were a lot of comments. Real American grit. The spirit of the SEALs lives on. But Elias? He went back to his room, shined his boots, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The moonlight caught Jake's dog tags hanging on the wall. Did well today, bro, he said softly. Kept the line. A letter came months later. A pink envelope, with a Virginia postmark. Sarah's writing is tidy and cheerful. Hey Elias, on Labor Day, Ryan James Thompson Jr. came out kicking and screaming. 8 pounds and eyes like his dad's. Last week we went to the tomb and put a little flag from you there. Your family now. Come see him once in a while. Honor and strength. Sarah. Elias carefully wrapped it up, and a rare smile broke through his tough exterior. Reyes walked by in the hall and smiled at him. I heard from the widow. Brass wants you to stay with him. Play your cards right, Kane. You're going places." He brushed it off, but the fire kept burning inside. Jax also changed his life by giving up the flask for VA sessions, making up with a new group of veterans, and biking for recovery. "That guard," he would tell his friends in a serious tone, "showed me the man I forgot I could be. No lies, only the truth." Elias Kane began his vigil again at Arlington, where the winds carry the sounds of reveille and taps, steps measured, rifle true, a guard against the gloom. The vigil is every day, but Memorial Day is only once a year. The boom of motors and the flash of steel don't show true strength. It's in the stand you take when the world is silent, defending the weak, honoring the dead, and getting ready for the war that is still to come. And that is the legacy that lives on in the heartland of heroes in America.